All right, welcome back to Schlyde into Sports, live on 103.1 FM on WVLP Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Schleier, a.k.a. Schlyde, and today, there's a decent amount of stuff on the docket. World Cup news, we've got a world record in swimming that was recently broken this past weekend, and we also have got to talk a little bit about the free agency. Where is LeBron going to go? So, if you've been here before, you know that most of the time we talk about college sports, the rules and regulations, and the trickle-down effects that they have going from one sport to the next sport, as well as other relevant sports stories that are happening right now. Lately, this summer, we've been focusing a lot more on the relevant sports stories and outcomes that are happening at the moment because, college is not in session right now. The kids are not in school. So most of the stuff that's going on right now is training. Not a lot going on right now. So luckily, though, we do have the World Cup, NBA free agency, and soon NFL preseason. So let's start off with the swimming story. So the world record, which this was in the 200 long course meter butterfly, was recently broken by Summer McIntosh with a time of 2:05.65, which ends the oldest world record on the women's side for swimming. Like, that was the oldest world record in women's swimming, and Summer just broke it. And this is something that I joke about with one of my friends, but it's just Summer doing summer things in the season of summer, because her name is Summer. But yeah, she not only set a new world record, but also a new Canadian record, Commonwealth record, American record, and championship record. So huge achievement there for Summer. Just for a little bit of added context, this world record was set during the supersuit era. So for those of you that don't know what the supersuit era is, that is when the swimsuits that the swimmers swam in were made out of polyester and extremely water repellent materials or water resistant materials. Although really, most people refer to them as water repellent materials because no water could get on them. They were essentially a shield that kept water off of your body. So, and that made it easier to float in the water, stay on top of the water, which ultimately makes you swim faster. But as time has gone on, ever since the suit ban after 2009, the suit ban happened after the World Championships in 2009, because every single world record was broken during that meet. So now, almost every single world record, except for the men's 4x100 freestyle relay during the Beijing Olympics. That one is a pretty infamous relay, simply because that's the one where Jason Lezak comes back in the last 100 and gets the victory for Team USA, as well as the world record in that event. But yeah, on the women's side, there are no more supersuit records left. For the men's side, though, there is still a decent amount of supersuit records. You still have the 50-meter freestyle set by Cesar Cilio from Brazil with a 20.91 back in December of 2009. Paul Biedermann has the 200-meter freestyle record. He's from Germany with a 1:42.00 during the World Championships meet that I was talking about earlier in 2009, July 28th. Then Zhang Lin from China in the 800-meter freestyle went a 7:32.12, also in that same World Championships meet. 200-meter backstroke set by Aaron Pearsall from USA. He went a 1:51.92, again during that World Championships meet in 2009. But like I said before, we still have the 4x100 meter freestyle relay set by Phelps, Weber, Jones, and Lezak with a 3:08.24 back in the Beijing Olympics. And there's also the 4x200 meter freestyle relay set by Phelps, Behrens, Walters, and Lochte with a time of 6:58.55 during the World Championships in 2009. Those World Championships were in Rome. Ever since those World Championships, the records have been slowly but surely falling as the sport of swimming gets faster, despite the supersuits being banned. Now, if anything, this just kind of proves that the supersuits, they had an impact, but ultimately there's a lot more to the sport of swimming than just supersuits. You can't just slap on a suit and, become magic, right? That's just not, that's not how any sport works. But for swimming, at the time, back in 2009, it really did seem like, well, if you have the suits, you're going to be able to go stupidly fast because of the advantage that you have wearing the suit. But again, just like in anything, the more you learn about the sport and the more you start to figure things out within the sport, you find other kinds of advantages. Different technology comes out to help with training, to improve recovery, stuff like that. Different dry land or weight exercises that help with certain aspects of your race. All of that is still true. And yes, the supersuit is one of those things that would have an impact. But because of the drastic impacts that it had on the races all at once in a specific time, that's why they banned it. So, yeah, they were also really expensive. The materials they were made out of, not just polyester, but also shark skin as well. Just really rare materials that made the suits ultra expensive and not affordable for a lot of people. So essentially, it allowed for the top swimmers to stay at the top for longer periods of time. Now, if you've been following the Olympics, there has been a lot of flip-flopping within Team USA, people taking spots, people getting spots taken from them more frequently, younger faces in the sport becoming more common, like not just Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps, when he first went to the Olympics, he was the youngest person there. He was 16, and now we're seeing a lot. We're seeing that a lot more commonly now. So yeah, I think the supersuits kind of started the era for swimming to get to the point where, yeah, maybe, just figuring out some kind of advantage, learning more about buoyancy and kind of using science to improve various aspects of the sport to make it faster. That still rings true for this. Summer McIntosh, by the way, if you guys didn't know, she's 19. She is 19 years old. She's very young. She's, at least in the sport, she is kind of seen as the next Katie Ledecky. She is really fast at IM as well as mid-distance and distance freestyle. Very versatile swimmer. And every single summer, every single year, she just seems to get better and better and better. Her strategy for this race, she talked about it a little bit. This is something that she normally does also, but normally she goes really aggressive on the third 50, comparing her old personal best and the previous world record holders' times in addition to her current time. She had the slowest split going out by a couple of tenths, and then was about even. She was faster than her old personal best by 4/10 of a second, and also faster than the old world record pace by about a tenth of a second, 0.15. Third 50, she was faster than her old personal best by only 0.07, but she was faster than the old world record time on that third 50 by a whole half second. And then her last 50 was still faster than her old personal best by 0.07, but it was slower than the old world record time by about 0.3 of a second. So essentially, the strategy was to go hard on the third 50 and then just hang on at the end. And that strategy proved effective because she went out fast enough in the beginning. Second 50, she took that one strong as well. And then the third 50, she just absolutely crushed it and then just hung on. So congratulations to Summer. Shout out to Summer. That is absolutely insane. Not just breaking a world record, but breaking a super suited world record. That puts you on legendary status, even though, in my opinion, Summer was already on that legendary status prior to breaking that world record. But this just adds on to it. All right, so NBA free agency. The biggest story from NBA free agency currently is, where is LeBron going to go? Now, there's been some other free agency trades that have been a little interesting, to say the least. I think the most notable one that was pretty interesting was the Paul George for Jaylen Brown, the trade between the 76ers and the Boston Celtics. That kind of came out of nowhere, to say the least. But yeah, I thought Jaylen Brown was going to be on the Celtics forever. But the president of basketball operations for the Celtics said, we want to first, before we do anything else, take a moment to thank Jaylen, not only for all he did on the court, but just as much for all the incredible impact he's had off the court. Because, he is seen as a leader. But the trade itself, I was a little confused by it, just because Paul George is kind of in his older years. He's been going from franchise to franchise. It seems like wherever he goes, the franchise always ends up seeming worse off than where it was before. You look at the Clippers, you look at the Oklahoma City. Well, the Oklahoma City Thunder seem better now, but immediately after he left Oklahoma City was in a string of chaos. They were losing left and right. They looked like a typical small market franchise where they couldn't really do anything, but then they drafted well, and now they have an elite team, and now they look like one of the bigger market teams based on the moves that they made. But Boston acquiring Paul George just, to me, did not seem like the right move at all. You look at, even just looking at some of the memes online, it's been pretty hilarious. There was this one meme that I saw on TikTok where USA was making a trade with Norway, and this is just a hypothetical trade, but USA wanted Holland from Norway. Not Erling Holland, or wait, no, actually I think it was Erling Holland, but the TikTok had the spelling wrong. It spelled it like Holland, like Holland, as in like Dutch Holland. So I don't know why they had the Norway flag there, but I think one way or another there was a mistake in the meme. I'm pretty sure, based on the current events right now, with Erling Haaland being a prominent figure in the World Cup right now, currently tied for the most amount of goals in the World Cup, I think that is probably what the person was referring to, but they just spelled Erling's last name wrong. But I'm sure that was autocorrect's fault, not necessarily the person's fault. But anyways, USA was making a trade with Norway, and USA says, I want Holland. And Norway goes, why on earth would we give you Holland? And then USA goes, we'll give you Paul George. And then Norway goes, oh, where do I sign? Where do I sign? And it's just like, the point of the meme was just to illustrate the confusion of why do people keep signing Paul George when he is past his prime, and based on his record with all the franchises that he's been on, it just seems like he leaves a path of destruction behind him. So I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, in my opinion, ever since Paul George left the Thunder, he just has not been the same. He was his best when he was on the Pacers, but yeah, he's not in his prime. It just seems like a terrible investment by Boston. Not to mention the fact that they're getting rid of Jaylen Brown, who is arguably the best and most consistent player on the Boston Celtics, because yes, sure, they do have Jason Tatum, but Jason Tatum always seems to be injured when it matters most, especially ever since he tore his Achilles before the second time he tore his Achilles. Dude is just always injured when the Celtics need him to be there. And this has been the case ever since they won the NBA championship. I believe that was in 2022. So I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what the logic was there. I think Philly also got some draft picks as well, just because Paul George, again, because he's one of the older players, typically the longer you've been in the league, just like the longer you've been in a specific profession, the more you're going to have to get paid, or the higher your paycheck typically is because of the experience on your resume, right? It's the same thing with basketball. Longer you're in the league, unless you negotiate for a cheaper contract, the more money you're going to be making. So ultimately, 76ers fleeced the Boston Celtics, and again, not even mentioning the fact that they're in the same conference. Both teams are in the Eastern Conference, and they are both rivals within the Eastern Conference. So I don't know. I think that was just a terrible decision. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the 76ers in the playoffs next year with Jaylen Brown at the helm. Now, Joel Embiid is a player that also seems to get injured pretty frequently, so that's also something to keep an eye on. But I think ultimately the winner between the two franchises is most definitely the 76ers getting a reliable, consistent player who does not get injured a lot in Jaylen Brown. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now with free agency. Some of the trades just seem completely ridiculous. That one was just the most ridiculous. And now we've got, where is LeBron going to go? Now, when LeBron left Cleveland the first time, back in the 2000s, before he left for the Heat, there was a whole entire show dedicated on where LeBron was going to go. It was staged almost like The Bachelors. And it seems like we're going back to that because LeBron hasn't really given any indication as to where he's going to go. He is not signed back with the Lakers. It doesn't seem like he's planning on signing back with the Lakers. So what teams can LeBron even go to? I mean, I'm looking at the Athletic right now, which these seem like the best and most likely options, some of which we talked about before, others not so much. So obviously he could go back to Cleveland. That's number one. I don't necessarily think that's likely. It would be a little bit weird to go back 3 times, especially now that Cleveland has just recently signed Donovan Mitchell to a 4-year contract, pretty lucrative deal. So if LeBron does go back to Cleveland, there's not going to be a lot of money for him. And if there is money for him, then they're going to be trading away a lot of their depth. And frankly, if I'm Cleveland, I would not want to be trading a lot of the depth. If LeBron wants to go back to Cleveland to win, he's going to have to take a smaller deal, similar to what Draymond is trying to do to acquire LeBron, ironically. So, yeah, I think it could be very interesting. I mean, Cleveland does have James Harden unsigned, so there could be a trade that could happen to get LeBron to Cleveland to where it wouldn't really compromise them too much because, I mean, James Harden's he's not terrible. He's great on offense, but he's not really great on defense. And in the playoffs, he's just very inconsistent with his shooting. he's not very reliable in the playoffs. So I think keeping James Harden unsigned right now is probably why the Athletic has Cleveland up on their list as a likely place for LeBron to go to. The next one is the Denver Nuggets. And Denver's been an underdog. I mean, they were not on my list, that's for sure. But to the Athletic, they say that the Nuggets have been an underdog in this race since the start. Should be thrilled to have made it a full week without being officially eliminated from contention. So, yeah, again, like I said before, kind of going back to the whole where's LeBron going to go show. But, yeah, I'm not entirely sure where he's going to go. Frankly, I'm not even sure it really matters at this point just because of his age and kind of going back to his contract. Like, they're going to have to pay him a lot of money unless he negotiates for a smaller deal. So I really don't think it matters necessarily where he's going to go. The team that picks him up, he's probably only going to go for like a year or 2 years and then retire. And then the team is going to be left with nothing because they're going to put all their money into LeBron. So, yeah, I don't know. But for some reason, Denver is on this list. And it seems like Jokic may be trying to get this done, but I'm a little bit, again, I'm always concerned about the depth of the team because looking at the past couple of years, you look at even just this year alone, the teams that made it into the semifinals, they all had deep teams. They were all deep. So I think depth matters now more than being a superstar. You got to have a solid bench. And to me, it seems like if you pick up LeBron, you're getting rid of your entire bench to do so at this point. But yeah, another team that we talked about before, Golden State Warriors. Kind of talked about why already with Draymond Green being a free agent, opting to take a smaller contract with the Warriors. Seems like Draymond is likely going to go back to the Warriors. He just wants a smaller contract. Honestly, if we get Team Unk, that may drive ratings up for the NBA. So that might be something that the NBA tries to push for. But frankly, I'm not a big fan of the move. I just think just with all the superstars all together, there's just a lot of big personalities with even just LeBron and Draymond alone. Like, just both of them are very big personalities. I don't necessarily know how they get along with each other off camera or anything, but we've all seen how LeBron can clash with big personalities. You look at Stephen A., who's not even a basketball player, but he's a big personality in the sports world, and both LeBron and Stephen A. clashed last year. We could maybe see that again. Going back to Draymond, you look at the whole situation with Jordan Poole, how a couple years ago, Draymond Green punches Jordan Poole in the face in a scrimmage. Jordan Poole ends up getting traded to the Wizards. So it's going to be really intriguing to see how this all plays out. Another one, and this one really shouldn't be too surprising, is Miami Heat. Some people have been wanting LeBron to make a return to Miami Heat, similar to the way that he made a return to Cleveland. The Heat definitely still need some help with their roster. Ever since trading for Giannis, they basically got rid of all their depth. Giannis is another one of those players where you have to pay a huge sum of money just to get him, and he does not take pay cuts. They have Giannis, they have Bam Adebayo, and that's a formidable duo, but they gave up their entire bench pretty much to acquire Giannis. So if they do get LeBron, what would they even trade to get him? What money does Miami even have to acquire LeBron? Is LeBron willing to take a smaller amount of money in order to go on a team with Giannis and Bam? I don't think so. I don't think he is. Because in previous eras in the NBA, or at least, in previous decades, I should say, you used to have to have 2 to 3 superstars on your roster. Now, you don't. You just need to have a deep roster, people that know the system that is being played and are able to fill their roles the way that they need to fill them out. So, frankly, I really don't think LeBron going to the Miami Heat would be good for really any party, because I know they're all trying to win rings. None of the parties, the second, third, fourth, fifth, no parties are going to benefit, in my opinion, from LeBron going to Miami. Another one that is definitely a dark horse, these last two on the list are dark horses for sure, in my opinion. Kind of like Denver, but I guess second dark horse is the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is probably the least likely out of everybody to acquire LeBron. They already have Anthony Edwards, and they have a very deep roster right now. I really don't think that it's likely. They've got Rudy Gobert, McDaniels. Well, they just recently acquired LaMelo Ball in a trade. I just don't think that they need to acquire LeBron, nor will they have the money and resources to acquire LeBron. They would have to make another trade. Are they going to make another trade with a team that is fairly young right now? Like, they have a pretty decent young team right now. I really don't think that they're going to risk that in order just to have LeBron. I mean, there definitely would be a time where I'd be like, oh, if a team got LeBron, they would highly benefit, and it would be an absolute no-brainer to acquire LeBron. But at this day and age, at this point in his career, it just doesn't seem like a good investment, a good acquisition for a franchise. And the final dark horse is the Philadelphia 76ers. They just acquired Jaylen Brown. They have Joel Embiid. I think out of all the teams, this might be the most interesting one, as well as the most likely one, to be completely honest. From what I've seen at All-Star games, I think LeBron and Joel get along very well. I think the 76ers could pick up LeBron to mentor Jaylen Brown. I could see maybe a potential clashing between Jaylen Brown and LeBron James, because both of them are pretty big personalities, but both of them will be previously leaders of their team. LeBron was the leader of the Lakers. Jaylen Brown was at least seen as the leader of the Celtics. Now they're both going to the 76ers, where Joel Embiid has pretty much established himself as the leader there the past 6 years or so. So it's going to be interesting to see who takes charge, who allows who to take charge, and how that would go. With the trade, like with the draft picks that the 76ers acquired from the Jaylen Brown trade, I do think that it is entirely possible that they could pick up LeBron and still keep Jaylen Brown and Joel Embiid. To me, this looks like the most likely outcome. I think at least ranking each of these teams that I previously listed as likely places for LeBron to go, I think 76ers is probably at the top. I'd put Golden State at number 2, simply because of the working that they're doing with free agency, with the players, like not just in the office, but also that are currently on the team, with Draymond Green. I'd say Cleveland would be number 3 on my list, simply because that's where his career started. Maybe he wants to end his career there. For 4th, I'd probably say Miami Heat, simply for the same reason as Cleveland, just because he didn't necessarily end his career, start his career in Miami, but that is where he first got a ring. That's where he got his first ring, was in Miami. That's where he established the super team era with having 3 superstars, like the big 3. He truly established what a big 3 could do in Miami. So maybe he goes with Giannis and Bam, establishes big 3, and does the same thing in Miami. I don't think it's likely, but that's why I have them at number 4 on my list. I'd say 5th would be Denver, simply because I feel like they have a little bit more depth than Minnesota. I feel like Minnesota would have to sacrifice more depth if they wanted to still hold on to the star power that they currently acquired. So I would have Denver at 5th and Minnesota in last on the list. That's how I would rank each of the 6 teams that The Athletic has on their list. All right. Before we start talking about the World Cup, the USA versus Belgium game, and the quarterfinalists that have been solidified and are possibly coming in, we're going to take a short little break and hear a message from our sponsor.
This broadcast is brought to you by Authentic Impact, a Northwest Indiana executive coaching practice working with family businesses to ensure their legacy. When you started your business, you made a promise to do things differently, better than anyone else. Over time, as the business grows, that promise can get diluted or even lost. Penny Schlyde at Authentic Impact helps family business owners reignite that promise, weaving it into team engagement, performance, and hiring so your passion becomes the heartbeat of your company again. Learn more at authentic-impact-coaching.com.
All right, so let's talk about this USA versus Belgium game. And man, this just ends a incredible run that we've had this World Cup. I mean, making it to the round of 16 for the first time since, I believe it was 2002. It's absolutely incredible. But just the way it ended was insane. I mean, just losing 4-1 to Belgium. And there's a lot of things that I think went wrong going into this. Obviously, it all begins with the red card that Flo got in the game prior, in the round of 32 against Serbia. Bosnia, not Serbia. Bosnia. There was a whole controversy surrounding that red card and whether or not it should have been called. And lots of people online were talking about it, from small influencers to big influencers to entire news networks talking about the red card, trying to advocate for the red card to go away and to let Flo play. But here we go, and all of a sudden, the president gets involved, and he makes a call to FIFA a couple of days prior to the start of the USA versus Belgium game, and hours later, the FIFA president invokes Article 27 and suspends the suspension that Flo was going to have. And then people started going absolutely nuts online, citing corruption because President Trump got involved. There's 2 perspectives to look at it here. I think, there's one perspective which I think is the obvious one based on, some of the words I used previously, but the corruption angle where, president's trying to collude to get the best lineup in to try to beat Belgium. The second perspective is the president getting involved not as the president, but as a fan of the sport and somebody who knows the president of FIFA fairly well. I mean, I don't necessarily know how well the president or the presidents know each other, but it was made pretty clear that they knew each other in some form or capacity, and next thing you know, it gets lifted. And they're like, you know what? I'll do this as a favor for a friend. Like that type of thing. Now, to be honest, do I think the red card should have not happened in the first place? Yes, I absolutely do. I don't think that red card should not have been there to begin with. There was many calls, or I should say many no calls, similar to what Flo did in the game against Bosnia. And nothing happened. Not even yellow cards were happening. I think Messi did something similar, and nothing got called. And his looked a lot more intentional than what Flo's did. But that's besides the point. Do I necessarily think that the president should have gotten involved in the way that he did? Not necessarily. I think there's definitely ways to go about it instead of maybe him calling the FIFA president. Because, I mean, it seems like he knew about Article 27 in FIFA's bylaws. USA, he could have gotten in contact with the USA Soccer Federation and been like, hey, like, maybe we can try to convince them to invoke Article 27. And then in that way, it wouldn't have been a direct connection between Trump and the FIFA president. It would have been, Trump offering an idea to the head of the USA Soccer Federation, them going to the FIFA president and appealing for themselves. I think that is probably the cleanest way that it could have been done. In my opinion. I'm not saying that it's entirely fact, but that's just, in my opinion, how I think it probably would be, or how it should go. But yeah, the other thing that was definitely a main cause of the loss in this game was our goalie. Matt Freese. And why am I saying this? Because at a key moment in the game, this is towards the beginning of the second half, we were down only 1-2. We had momentum on our side. Matt Freese comes about 7 yards out of the box to pass the ball, to mess with the ball. And he misses. And a Belgian player who's right there on top of him steals the ball away. Nobody is in the box, and he just shoots it and gets a goal, which completely flips the momentum on its head from USA having some favorable momentum, possibly going to tie the game, to now being down 1-3. And then, because Belgium was angry going into this game, out of spite, Romelu Lukaku, he scores a goal, the fourth goal, in the 93rd minute. I'm pretty sure he probably did that out of spite, because the head of the Belgian Soccer Federation was very upset about Flo being allowed to play again. And he tried to appeal the appeal that the US had, and it did not go his way. So I'm sure Belgium was very fired up going into this match. They did score in the 9th minute, so the energy that Belgium had, they brought it early. USA was also just in general making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, especially on that back line. And against a team like Belgium, where they have a strong front, I mean, USA has a strong front, but Belgium also has a very strong front. You cannot do that against a team with elite strikers that Belgium has. You just can't do it. So, yeah, it was just a complete, how do I put this? Combustion of Team USA, just under the lights in Seattle. And it was definitely sad to see after, celebrating 4th of July weekend. It's not exactly how I anticipated ending my 4th of July weekend, with watching my team lose 1-4. Not exactly the best way to end 4th of July weekend, but it is what it is. This was, just looking at it objectively, this was still the most that we've done in years. This is the furthest we've ever gone in years in soccer. Belgium is a very tough team, and even just making it to the round of 16, I wasn't even sure I was going to witness that in my lifetime, just because of how bad USA Soccer had been the past 10, 15 years. So just even just seeing that we made it to the round of 16 is just absolutely incredible. And I think once we get our issues taken care of with the back line and, definitely getting a new goalie, because, oh my God, if we don't get a new goalie, it's going to be hard for a lot of us to root for Team USA in the future, because what was he doing? But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential with this USA roster. They've been doing a lot of great things to turn USA Soccer around, and it feels like even with this loss, it seems like we're getting closer and closer to getting a win, but yeah, it sucks that it ended the way that it did. It just sucks that it ended that way. So as of right now, just currently looking at the standings, just to kind of recap the round of 16, Canada lost 0-3 to Morocco. France beat Paraguay 1-0. That was a pretty interesting match, to say the least. Paraguay and France were just completely beating each other up. Obviously, the one that we just talked about, USA lost to Belgium 1-4. Portugal loses to Spain 1-0, which ends up retiring Ronaldo. This was going to be his last World Cup. So as of right now, Ronaldo is officially retired from international soccer. Norway beat Brazil 2-1. That was a feisty match, especially at the end when Neymar gets in with like 15 minutes left in the game, and he just starts talking a bunch of crap after he makes a penalty kick with 2 minutes left in the game, and then ends up crying like a total baby after losing the game. So, I mean, I get that it was his last World Cup, but oh my word, like, way to look like a douchebag. England ends up beating Mexico 3-2. That was an absolutely huge match, simply because Mexico never really loses in the Azteca ever. This would be the 13th game that Mexico has ever lost in the Azteca. Their record in the Azteca is like 80-something to 5-13 now. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Then Switzerland and Colombia, they play as soon as the broadcast is over. They're going to be, like, the kickoff is going to start as soon as we get off air in about 15 minutes. And last I checked, with the Egypt versus Argentina game, Egypt was up 1-0 over Argentina, the previous world champs. So this World Cup has been absolutely interesting. There's no host countries left. You've got 5 of the 8 teams currently left, or at least the ones that have made it, 5 of the 6 teams that have made it to the quarterfinals are all European teams. That's absolutely nuts. That is absolutely nuts. The only other continent that is getting represented in this quarterfinals is Africa, with Morocco representing them. And possibly Egypt. Egypt could possibly be joining them because, like I said before, last I checked, Egypt was up 1-0 against Argentina. So if Argentina loses, we are guaranteed to see a not repeat champion for the World Cup. Switzerland, Colombia, that's just to kind of preview that a little bit. I think that'll be a pretty interesting game. Colombia is kind of a sneaky team-ish. Switzerland, they're a pretty sneaky team as well. So I'm really intrigued to see how that match will go. But I do have one little fun fact, though, about the World Cup. And this, I don't know what it is with me and looking at coincidences, because I find a lot of them, at least when looking at outcomes of sports, or at least like outcomes leading into championships. Just referring back to the Danhausen curse, the Donald Trump curse, where he shows up to championship games and the home team loses that championship game whenever he's there. Just stuff like that. I always seem to come across stuff like that. And the one that I most recently came across was and this was from Coaxis Sports on TikTok, says, since 2002, the team that eliminated the team that beat Japan went on to win the World Cup. So, and this started, again, in 2002. So in 2002, Japan loses to Turkey. Turkey then loses to Brazil. So Turkey is the team that defeated Japan in 2002. Brazil then goes on to win the World Cup. Okay, but that just happened once. There's no way it happens again. Well, 2010, Japan lost to Paraguay. Paraguay becomes the team that defeated Japan. Paraguay then loses to Spain in 2010. So Spain becomes the team that beat the team that eliminated Japan. Spain goes on to win the World Cup. Okay, if it happens twice, maybe it's just a coincidence. 2018, Japan loses to Belgium. Belgium loses to France. France wins the World Cup. That's the third time. 2022, Japan loses to Croatia. Croatia loses to Argentina. And this one we remember a little bit more simply because that was the previous World Cup. That was the last World Cup before this one. So Croatia loses to Argentina in the semifinals. And then Argentina goes on to win the World Cup. This year, in this World Cup, Japan lost to Brazil. Who did Brazil lose to on Saturday? Norway. And that is a team that Brazil has never been able to beat in international soccer ever. They've never been able to do it. So does Norway win the world? Is Norway going to win the World Cup? I'm thinking so. I think that might be the case because the way Norway plays is very interesting. They control the ball, they boot it up, and essentially try to get it to Holland after booting it over the opposing team. And Holland then goes to score. Erling Haaland then goes to score. Erling Haaland touched the ball like 22 times. 22 times over the course of about 100 minutes because the game with Brazil and Norway went on for a while. It went on for about 95 to 100 minutes. But he touched the ball 22 times ish. It might have been 25, but touched the ball 22 times. He scored both the goals for Norway. He scored both of them. He scored both of them. So their strategy has been working so far. Their defense is absolutely impeccable. They have a lockdown defense. They're a very stupidly physical team. Not even just Erling Haaland, but all of them are super physical. And their goalie is insane. I mean, he is absolutely insane. He might be he might be one of the best goalies in the World Cup, because 1 out of the 2 PK kicks that Brazil had, this dude blocked. I mean, he blocked it. Nyland, who's the keeper for Norway, he blocked one of the PKs that would have had Brazil and Norway tied together. That is a huge game changer. He had 3 saves. 3 saves the entire game. One of them was a PK kick. The saves that he did had were nuts. He was flying across the net, or he was just on top of the ball. Like, he's one of the best goalkeepers that I've ever seen. Just absolutely insane. And there is a lot of hype for a goalkeeper. I mean, speaking of goalkeepers, there was a lot of hype for the goalkeeper from Cape Verde. Where is he? Vazinha. He was the goalkeeper for Cape Verde, and he also prior to being eliminated by Argentina, he had some incredible saves this tournament. Seeing him do what he did in the World Cup at 40, no less. Nyland is 34. This dude is 40. He's 40 years old. And he was doing what he was doing. I mean, it was nuts. It was nuts. You rarely ever get to see it. I mean, it'll probably be his last World Cup, but he got so much hype online that he now has more followers than some of the biggest celebrities. I mean, Tom Brady being one of those people. It's nuts. I mean, he became a sensation online, being notably the best goalkeeper in the entire World Cup. I mean, you look at the game with Spain. He didn't allow a single goal against Spain in the group stage. None. He allowed no goals. He had 8 saves that game, too. He had 8 saves. 8 saves in the game against Spain. In the game against Uruguay, he didn't have to have any saves in the game against Uruguay. I mean, he gave up 2 goals, but Uruguay also gave up 2 goals. So he did what he needed to do there. That wasn't one of his better performances. But then Saudi Arabia, which is the last game of group play, and he had 3 saves there. But it was really that first game that had everybody sold on him being possibly the best goalkeeper in the entire World Cup. And I would have to agree. I mean, Cape Verde essentially drew their way into the knockout stage. They drew Spain, they drew Uruguay, and they drew Saudi Arabia. Uruguay ends up losing to Spain, and then they get eliminated from World Cup contention. And if it wasn't for this goalie, if it wasn't for him, probably would not be where they were. I mean, they did lose in the round of 32, but they put up a huge fight against Argentina. And in the game against Argentina, he had some pretty incredible saves. He had 7 saves, but he had a couple on Messi that even Messi was like, whoa, dude, how did you get that? it was incredible. So I think Norway being a dark horse in the World Cup is slowly starting to become less of a wish, like less of a dream, and more of a reality. Like it's becoming closer. We're getting closer and closer to the end of the World Cup already. I mean, we're at the quarterfinals. There's going to be 8 teams left by the end of today. Like next week when we're back on air, we're going to be talking about the semifinals. I mean, the first semifinal game is going to be right at the beginning of next week's broadcast on Tuesday, July 14th. Like, we are so close to the end. And then the second semifinal game is Wednesday, July 15th. And then the final is going to be Sunday, July 19th. So, yeah, I still can't believe we are already this far into the World Cup. This World Cup could just keep going and going and going for all I care. This has been super fun and entertaining, and it's kept me on the edge of my seat every single game I've watched. I mean, it's been so much fun following the World Cup, and I'm grateful that you guys have been following the World Cup with me. It has been an absolute journey, to say the least, and it is far. I was about to say it's far from over, but, I kind of say that a little bit ironically, just because literally 30 seconds before that, I was talking about how we're already basically at the end of the World Cup. So, oh man, sometimes I do it to myself. Sometimes I do it to myself, but yeah, right now, my early prediction, or at least my dream World Cup final game. Here's my dream World Cup final game. I want Norway versus Morocco in the final of the World Cup. I think that would be absolutely insane. Like, come on, you cannot tell me that I'm wrong. That would be an absolutely insane World Cup final. No matter the outcome, we'd get a new champion. Like, neither Morocco or Norway have won a World Cup before. Morocco is one game away from getting to where they were last year, which was the semifinal, or not last year, but last World Cup in 2022, making it to the semifinals. Norway is the furthest they've ever been. If both of them make it to the final and one of them wins, we're going to have a new champion. Both teams are going to go the farthest they've ever gone in their history, and they're going to cement their legacy in the sport of soccer. Or I should say football, but we're in America, so I'm going to say soccer. Ha! All right, so with that being said, that's all we got time for today. If you weren't able to listen to the full broadcast, you can always go or at least, on Tuesday, you can always go and listen Friday at noon. I also upload the broadcasts on Spotify, Patreon, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Millions.co, and other podcasting platforms. So if you happen to jump in halfway through the broadcast, or maybe you jumped in at the beginning, missed a little bit in the middle, jumped in at the end, and you want to go back and listen to what you missed for some added context on certain things, you can always go there to hear what you missed. I'm also on social media. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Those are all Schlyde Into Sports. If you search up Schlyde Into Sports, you should be able to find them. The profile should have the WVLP logo somewhere in there. Sometimes with the circle, it cuts it off slightly, but you should be able to see some of the WVLP logo in the bottom left-hand corner of the circle profile logo. Next week, probably going to be talking about around some of the same topics, so stay tuned. And with that being said, I'll see you all next time. Schlyde out.